Yeah, so going up.
Just funny. All right, everyone. I think we'll get started now. So today we have another special NSA ECR Symposium. Presenting for us is Pemortal. He just finished his PhD at the University of Sydney, and he worked on. Yes, and he's been working on creating a MUSE-like integral field spectrographic cube for the Milky Way, and I'll let him now take it away. Thanks, Pemortal.
Thanks, Salman, and hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to give my my works that I've done during my PhD. And yeah, I'm from University of Sydney, and I'm supervised by Joshua and Hawson, Michael Hayden, and Sanjeev Sharma. And my thesis title is the study of the galactic and the extragalactic evolution using the MUSE integral field spectrograph. And I just highlight 3 words that are very important. One is the galactic, and the other is extragalactic, and also the MUSE, which is the instrument that I use. So go to next. Yes. So I will firstly give you some introductions and background or motivation of my work, and then I will talk about 2 major works that during my PhD, and also give you some conclusions and some future plans. So I just want to quickly introduce MUSE. I think some of you have known that. The full name is Multi-Unit Spectroscopic Explorer, and is mounted on UT4, one of the 4 8-meter VLT telescope, and is in Chile. So MUSE is an integral field spectrograph. So by the means, if you look at the left bottom video, the data product for this instrument is like a 3D cube, and with 2D in spatial, like it can be area and depth, and the 3rd dimension is wavelength. So in that sense, that means during the observation, what you get is like a 2D image, but on the pixel, it's not just one flux value, it's actually a spectrum. So MUSE has the wavelength coverage in optical from 465 to 930 nanometers, and its spectral resolution ranges from 2000 to 4000. It has 2 observing modes. One is called wide field mode, which is most people use. It has a spatial resolution of 0.2 arcsecond and with a total field of view of 1 arcminute. And for each narrow field mode, especially to look at some crowded regions, it has spatial resolution, which is very tiny, it's just 0.025 arcsecond with the total field of view of 7.5 arcsecond square. So because it's on the VLT, which is an 8-meter telescope, so it has really large aperture, then it has a really nice observation depth, and you can see so many details during this observation on any stellar objects. So that means MUSE has become one of the most oversubscribed instruments in the world, and has been used to so many scientific topics. And one of the topic is the disk galaxies, and I say it's from the Milky Way to others, because if you ask me to separate the Milky Way into 2 groups, I would say, if you ask me to separate the disk galaxies into 2 groups, I would say the first group only contains our Milky Way, and the second group has all the other galaxies. And the reason is very simple. It's just because we are inside the Milky Way. So that means we have so many surveys or telescopes, for example, Gaia with other spectroscopic surveys, to measure the stellar objects in really nice detail. We can get their 3D position, 3D velocity, and we can measure more than 20 chemical abundances, and we can use all this information to infer the stellar age and do what we call galactic archaeology. So that's very nice, that's brilliant. But for external galaxies, because they are a little bit further away, so the flux from the pixel you get is not contributed by a single star. It's contributed by a group of stars, or we call them stellar populations. So in this sense, if you want to obtain the parameters of this galaxy, you can only get the projected position. For age-young galaxies, that means radius and height. And you can only measure the random side velocity, maybe you can get velocity dispersion and some higher ordered kinematic moments. And for chemical abundances, you can only get metallicity and alpha, and also maybe you can infer the stellar age as well. So that's the differences of the detailed measurements makes the Milky Way as the best studied galaxy than the others, because we know too much details. But if you really want to understand how this galaxy is formed and evolved, the Milky Way is like one data point in our theory to fit. And one data point is not enough. And we definitely need more data points, right? So that means we have to combine the Milky Way with other external galaxies together for us to understand how they formed and evolved. So this is the main focus of my PhD. And one of the work I did is I keep exploring the information in the Milky Way which hasn't been studied fully, and also see if I can extend my method to external galaxies. So that's one way from the Milky Way to other galaxies. And the other way is I'm also trying to see if I can make the Milky Way as an external galaxy and then use the knowledge we know from other galaxies and then apply this to the Milky Way. So that's why I put these two arrows here. And for the first work, I will name it as measuring chemical abundances of crowded regions. This is the regions that I say they're specific in the Milky Way from the MUSE observations. And this is collaborated with Yuan Senting and Mao Sheng. And the motivation, like why I'm very interested in the crowded regions, the motivation is very simple. It's because, as we all know, we have so many large spectroscopic surveys on the Milky Way, like we have Galactic, we have Apogee, and we have MUSE, and we can get more than 10 million stellar objects with their parameters. And during the observation, the instrument they use is the so-called multi-fibrified spectroscopic spectrograph. So that means during the observation, we have, let's say we have a number of stars here. Actually, it can be hundreds of stars. And based on each star's position on the plate, we just put one fiber onto the star, and then we take the exposure. Then from each fiber, we get each spectrum. And then we apply some model fitting techniques, we can get the stellar parameters. So that has been very successful. But the normal field is just like, that's why they are called normal. We also have this the specific field, special field. For example, if we have maybe thousands or hundreds of thousands of stars in a field of view, and each star very close to each other, then if you still want to use the multi-fibrified spectrograph to take the exposure, for example, if you want to put your fiber onto this star, and what you find is that the light from this fiber will be contaminated by its nearby stars. And then it's very hard to obtain the individual stellar spectrum, and then it's very hard to get the stellar parameters. The crowded regions are very important for the Milky Way because like the Milky Way center or the core of global clusters are like this type. And they're also very important for us to understand how the Milky Way is formed and how the interactivities of the Milky Way with its nearby clusters. But it hasn't been really fully understood because of this observation limitation. So fortunately, we have the MUSE, and it can help us because MUSE is an integral field spectrograph. So if I put MUSE on this observation, it will be like if the image will be separated into these different grids. And then you can apply some algorithm to tell, even though there are some stars are very close to each other, you can tell how much light for each pixel belongs to this star and how much light belongs to that star and how much light belongs to that star. So there has been an algorithm, especially from MUSE, and this is called MUSE, to extract the individual stellar spectrum from the crowded regions, and this has been proven to be very successful. So that means now you have the way to obtain individual stellar spectrum from crowded regions. But then if you want to get the stellar parameters from the spectrum, there hasn't been a really easy and good to use way. So this is where my first work jumps in. So I use a machine learning model. This is called data-driven pen. is originally used to measure 20 chemical abundances or 20 stellar parameters from the LaMOST spectra. And it has been proven that on LaMOST spectra, the temperature measurement can be as precise as 70 Kelvin, log G can be 0.1, and other chemical abundances can be less than 0.1 dex as well. And the data-driven pen was trained for its training set. It used the spectrum from LaMOST with the stellar parameters from other higher spectral resolution surveys like Galactic and Apogee. And this work is important because it's the first time to show us that we can still obtain more than 20 stellar parameters precisely from the low resolution spectra at the LaMOST value. So that's possible. And you might ask me, like I have MUSE spectra, right? Why I mentioned LaMOST? It's just that because if you compare MUSE and LaMOST, you find that they are very similar, and in the wavelength region and also in the spectral resolution. So that gives me the hint that if I can modify my MUSE spectrum to make it like LaMOST spectra and then apply this model directly, maybe I have the chance to get more chemical abundances than the other method. So I developed my pipeline to do that. So first I have a crowded region observation from MUSE and also the input catalog from other photometric surveys, which only contains the position and magnitude for all the stars in this field. And then apply the so-called algorithm PamperMUSE to extract all the stellar spectrum. So I get the MUSE spectrum in the resolution of 3000. And then I just modify it. I degrade the spectral resolution to LaMOST and also cut the wavelength region. So then I can modify my MUSE into LaMOST and then apply data-driven pen directly to measure the stellar parameters. This seems pretty unusual techniques. And also you might have so many questions on, yes, you can measure even though you can measure the stellar parameters, but then how precise they can be. So I will just address all your questions in the following slides. So one question you might have is how similar the modified MUSE spectra compared to LaMOST, right? So I will just show you the top figure, which is the MUSE spectra versus LaMOST spectra for the same star. So they are the same star. And I just modify MUSE into LaMOST and just put them on top and bottom. I also have the residual panel. And you can see that the differences of these two spectrum are very small. The graded regions will not be used for my work, so we can just ignore them. But for the unmasked regions, you can see that the residuals is always below the flux error, which is the shaded region. So that means it is acceptable, and MUSE and LaMOST modified MUSE spectra is very similar as LaMOST spectra. So that question can be answered. And also the second question is, what's the fitting performance when you put MUSE spectra into data-driven pen? The bottom figure can answer you this. The black line is the MUSE spectra that is put it into data-driven pen. And the red line is the best fit. And from the residuals, you can also see that they are very similar. Okay, you might have another question is, even though MUSE and LaMOST are very similar in wavelength range and also in spectral resolution, but if you look at the wavelengths, you can see that in MUSE spectrum, we don't have the regions from 3700 to 4700. And this region have so many absorption lines, which is very helpful for us to accurately measure the abundances, right? Then if you put MUSE in data-driven pen, you don't have this wavelength range. Then how many abundances can be accurately measured? So to address this question, I made a validation process. So basically, I first find 27 common stars between MUSE and LaMOST, and then I plot the differences of temperature measured from MUSE spectra minus the temperature measured from LaMOST spectra as a function of methodicity. So what I've shown, there are 9 panels here, which means there are like 9 abundances that I think they can be accurately measured, because when I calculate the standard deviation of the residuals, for the abundances, if they are almost less than 1, then I say, okay, then they can be accurately measured. And we don't really see a very strong trend with metallicity. And for temperature, you can see the sigma is 80 Kelvin and it's 0.15 for log G. So that means, okay, at least for these 9 parameters, they can accurately be measured. So that's very nice. And also, I think the major thing I want to achieve is for the dense regions. So I also selected 9 MUSE observations towards the galactic bulge. And this is observed by Zoccali, I think in 2018. And they have 9 fields in the galactic center. And each field has exposure time, I think less than, is about 1.5 hours. So I just apply my method on their observation. And I get about 350 spectrum extracted per field. And there are 40% of stars have spectral signal noise higher than 60. So I have the observations toward the galactic center, and one figure I really want to see is the alpha versus metallicity. The top row is the result from my method from my on the MUSE observation. The bottom row is the apogee DR14 result, and I just want to mention that DR14 is measured by the pen, is not the original, is not the normal aspect cap pipeline. And you can see that from my data, even though I have less number of stars than apogee, but I can basically for the trend of alpha versus metallicity for different galactocentric radius is very similar compared to the apogee result. So that means that, okay, so my method, even though it's quite unusual, but it can still be used to study the alpha versus metallicity. And more importantly, because MUSE have really nice observation depths, so that means maybe we can do a lot of work towards the galactic center, which cannot be really easily done by other surveys. And the summary for this work is I present a novel method to measure the stellar parameters from MUSE observations using machine learning neural networks. And also the uncertainty is for temperature is about this number and log G, and also for these chemical abundances, I think they can be accurately measured. And this method is very useful to obtain abundances for stars in dense regions, for example, the galactic bulge and the global clusters, where the traditional fiber phase spectrograph couldn't achieve due to the fiber collision. And also for the future with Blue MUSE and MAVIS, we can get more observations in the shorter wavelength range because they have more absorption features, then we have the ability to measure more abundances. And for the future, we can also execute a stellar survey just using the MUSE archive data. I just make a simple cross-match, I think, with Gaia that find that there are more than 100,000 stars included in the archive MUSE observation. Then we can just quickly run all the data and provide a catalog of these stars with their chemical abundances to the community. So that means my first work is I just answer this question, and then we have the way to measure stellar parameters. For the future, I also have the plan that for the Galactic Center. I think in 2022 I submit a MUSE proposal and ask for 9.8 hour observation towards one field in ballast window because it has pretty low extinction. And I have certified that I can get more than 100 missing of stars because they are the best age proxy. And if for the future, we can get more stars, we have the ability to study the star formation history in the galactic center, and maybe we can have the ability to obtain a better picture of the formation history in the galactic center. That'd be really nice. And this paper is in preparation. So this is the only figure that I can show you the metallicity versus age and color-coded by alpha, and alpha age versus age color-coded by metallicity, and also alpha metallicity distribution. This is obtained from the method that in this work. And I couldn't show you too much detail until the paper being submitted. So yeah, I will let you know when I get it. And also I have another plan to study Omega Centauri, one of the global cluster using my method. The reason is that, well, one reason is I will be a postdoc in the University of Utah, and this is my research project. And also Omega Centauri is very important because it is thought to be the central progenitor of the last major merger, Gaia sausage. So if we can measure more chemical abundances, and also if we can infer the stellar age of the Omega Centauri, maybe we have the ability to know what happened in the last major merger of the Milky Way. That would be very nice. And going a little bit further, as I said, this work is mainly to obtain more information in the Milky Way in crowded regions. But crowded regions is not only in the Milky Way. For example, for this galaxy NGC 300, it's a little bit further than the Milky Way, but we can still have the ability to resolve individual stars. And for the normal fields, you can see because they are further, so the stars are more crowded. So it is also crowded regions, right? So I can also use my method to see if I can measure the stellar parameters or maybe chemical abundances from external galaxies. I think Martin Rose in his paper in 2018 has addressed this question because he has proved for one field with seeing of 0.6 arc second, he shown 3 stellar spectrum of this galaxy. But the current issue is the spectrum, the signal noise of the current spectrum is pretty low, so I couldn't apply my method. But assuming if we can increase the exposure time, or for the future, if we have a larger ELT telescope, which is actually 39 meters, sorry for that, we have the ability to increase the signal noise, right? Then I can try to apply my method on that to see if we can do something similar as galactic archaeology, but we can call that extragalactic archaeology for external galaxies. This is very interesting. So for my first work, I just keeping exploring more information in the Milky Way, and also prove you the ability to use my method for external galaxies as well. And for my second work, I think I really like this work as well. So it's going the other way. Like as I said, all the differences when you want to compare the Milky Way with other galaxies, or when you combine them together, is that your measurement is in different definition. So if you want to see if the Milky Way is the same or different than the other galaxies, like for example, if you just want to compare the metallicity gradient of the Milky Way with some of the external galaxies, you will see some differences, but you cannot tell if the differences is caused by your different measuring method, different definition, or it is something that is showing the Milky Way is different from the other galaxies. So assuming that if we have a mock observation of the Milky Way as an external galaxy, then we might get these stellar parameters in the same definition as this. And then we can compare them directly, and then there will be no systematic bias. So this is where my second work did. I just mock an integral field spectrograph data cube of the Milky Way. And this is collaborated with Yesa, Sam, Marimatic, and also Francesca Pina. So just briefly, what I did is I just transfer the parameters here to be here. And then you can see now they are in the same definition, then you can compare them directly. So this work is like building a bridge to connect the Milky Way with other galaxies. So how can I mock the integral field spectrograph observation? I write a code and I call it Galactic because it's like a handcraft of the Milky Way. And it's a code as a virtual telescope to look at the Milky Way using integral field spectrograph. Like if you want a MUSE, if you want semi, Hector, or manga observation, that's all possible at a position outside of the galaxy to obtain the Milky Way observation. And for the ingredients, to achieve that, I need to have a synthetic or mock Milky Way catalog contains some number of particles with parameters including position, velocity, metallicity, alpha, age, and extinction. Fortunately, my supervisor Sanjib Sharma has a code called eGalaxia. That's a code basically to mock the Milky Way catalog. It's a randomly sampling algorithm, and the good thing is the eGalaxia is embedded by a chemical evolution model, which I will introduce later. And to mock the integral field spectrograph observation, I also need to give the spectrum. And the spectrum I use is called the single standard population models. It can be MUSE, Pegas, or some others. The advantage of this code is that it can mock the data, and the data can be processed by the extragalactic data analysis code, such as Werner-Binning, PPXF, and Langström indices, which has been broadly used by people working on external galaxies. And the result can be compared directly with other observations without systematic bias, and to test if our theory of Milky Way evolution is applicable to other galaxies. So I will just briefly introduce the chemical evolution model. This is from my supervisor, Sanjib Sharma. This graph is showing you the basic components of the Milky Way. We have a bulge, and this should also be like a BP shape as well. And we have the thin disk, we have the thick disk, we also have the flare in the outer thin disk. And Michael Hayden used apogee observations in 2015 have shown the alpha versus metallicity distribution at different radius and height. And this work is very important because it shows the two sequences. One is alpha poor metal rich, the other is alpha rich metal poor. And these two sequences change, the fraction of these two sequences changes at different radius and height. And this is basically the best chemical picture of our Milky Way. The reason I want to introduce this chemical evolution model because it can magically reproduce the changes of these two sequences. So the right figure is the predictions from the chemical evolution model. And you can see that when you compare the right and the left and the right panel, you can see that they are very similar. And the reason is because Sanjib's model have the key effects of radial migration and kinematic heating. And also the efficiency of these two processes can be adjustable. And this model is also purely analytical, so it can be easily fit to other observations or cosmological simulations of some Milky Way-like galaxies. And so that's why, because this model is it can reproduce this chemical picture of the Milky Way. And if we just embed this model into eGalaxia, then we can have a synthetic Milky Way catalog, which is thermodynamically consistent with our Milky Way. So then we can say this is a good representative of the Milky Way. Okay, now I just introduce the procedures that how the Galactic code works. So for people not really familiar with this area, let me just firstly introduce how the people who work on external galaxies. Assuming you have a MUSE observation on one of the external galaxies, you have the integrated spectrum of each pixel. The first thing is you apply Werner-Binning. So that means you combine several pixels together to improve the spectrum signal to noise. And then you apply the PPXF, which is the full spectrum fitting techniques to measure all the kinematics and chemical composition parameters. And you also, during the fitting process, PPXF will use some simple standard population models like MUSE as a spectral template to fit. So when you fit with the integrated spectrum, you can measure the kinematics, which is called random cell velocity, velocity dispersion, H3 and H4. And you can also measure the chemical composition like mass-weighted or light-weighted age, metallicity, and alpha. Then you can plot these 7 beautiful figures, which reflects the property distribution along different positions of this galaxy. So this is NGC 5746 from Mathematic. Just want to give you some brief demonstration. So for the Galactic, we basically inverse this whole procedure. We actually start from the age metallicity alpha velocity distributions. This is predicted by Sandrip's chemical evolution model. And then we put this model into eGalaxia, and we get a synthetic Milky Way catalog, which has maybe 10 to the 8 particles. And then we put this mock catalog into a certain distance and inclination. Then we get a Milky Way in an external view. So the Milky Way, the current external view still only contains the particles, right? Then we need to give the particle spectrum and also apply the spatial binning. For example, MUSE is 0.2 arcseconds. Then for each spatial bin, there will be a number of particles included. And based on each particle's property, like stellar mass, age, metallicity, alpha, velocity, and extinction, we can give each particle a spectrum. And then we just stack all the particle spectrum together. We can get an integrated spectrum for just for this spatial bin. And we can do this for all the spatial bins, and then we can get a MUSE observation of our Milky Way. Then the question I personally am very interested is, if I put my mock Milky Way observation into the process of people working on the external galaxies, if PBXF can measure the accurate stellar galaxy property distributions like this, because I have particles in the mock Milky Way observation, so basically I know the true answer. Then if I compare my true answer to the PPXF measurements, are they consistent, right? This is the question I'm very interested in, because I think for previous studies, there are so many people is trying to use PPXF to do so many things, but there is a lack of a very comprehensive test to tell you if PPXF can do things in some aspect, if they can do some things not really good in some other aspects. But with the Galactic Milky Way, I can do that. So I just do a test. Basically, I call it a verification. I say my Milky Way has a distance of 26.5 megaparsec and with an inclination of 86 degrees, so it's almost age-on. And I didn't apply extinction because extinction will make many things more complicated. And also, if I'm only interested in the ability of PPXF, extinction is not really important here. And I assume that, okay, now I want to use MUSE to observe this small galaxy. And these two purple boxes are my MUSE field of view. And I use Miller's spectral templates to give the spectrum. And then I get a mock Milky Way daily cube like this. And then I actually apply the GIST pipeline, but it's a combination of so many algorithms, including PPXF, to measure the kinematics, mass weighted values, and mass fraction distributions, and then compare to the true values. And let's see what's the performance. This is the kinematics. Just want to remind you that this is my MUSE field of view. So the galaxy center is here, and this is the disk. So it's like this. And the true value, the first row is showing you the true value, like the true line of sight velocity, the true dispersion H3 and H4. And the second row, we shows the fitting results from PBXF. And in the third row, we show the residuals of these two panels for each parameter. And the color bar and color range is shown in each panel. And so, like for example, for the residual panels, because they are all from minus value to the positive value, and because green is in the middle of the color bar, so if in the residual panel, all the colors is in green, that means the residuals is 0, and that means PBXF is the same with the true answer. But if you look at the current residuals, we can see that it's very colorful. So that means you have systematic offsides in your residuals. And that also means PBXF have some like inconsistency results when compared to the true answers. And it is not only for one of the parameters, it is for all the parameters. So this is kinematics recovery. And the reason is very, very complicated, but I can prove you that I have fixed this issue, and I can show you that with the new test, the colors are all in green. So that means that's all very close to 0. To address this issue, let me just first give you some background of PPXF. So during the PPXF fitting, there's one very important assumption one is measuring kinematics, which is because it input all the standard templates, like let's say million standard templates, and the templates are just a spectrum with different metallicity, age, and alpha. And when PPXF measuring the kinematics, it basically assumes that all the different templates have the same velocity distribution. Maybe this is a bit hard to understand, but basically it assumes that the random cell velocity distribution is independent on age and metallicity. This is what most people did in their studies. But in reality, this is not really true, because assuming you have a line of sight, which is this red line, and you have 2 stellar particles, the blue one and the yellow one. And because they have different radius to the galactic center, and due to the age and the metallicity gradients, these 2 particles will have different age and metallicity. And also because they are on the different positions on the line of sight, so they will have different line of sight velocity. So that means there is a relation between line of sight velocity with age and metallicity, but just the PPXF ignores that. So that's why it couldn't well recover the kinematics measurements. And the other reason is very intrinsic, is due to the spectral resolution. Because for all the tests, I use Miller spectral resolution with the equivalent instrumental dispersion like 62 or 65 kilometers per second. But my dispersion ranges from 15 to 80 kilometers. So that means there are some beams have velocity dispersion which is less than this threshold. That will cause an issue. And if I use another template, which is Pegas, it has a higher spectral resolution. So that means the instrumental dispersion is only 15. So that beyond that's lower than this range, then this issue will be fine. So okay, so now I just tell you 2 reasons that can cause the PPXF issues on measuring the kinematics. One reason is the relation between velocity with age and metallicity. The other reason is due to the spectral resolution. And I fix both issues, and then I can show you the residuals is always in green. So the residuals are very close to 0. So the issue can be fixed. I think my interpretation, I don't know if all the people can understand that, but I have very detailed discussions in my paper. So when the paper gets submitted, you can go into that and see many details. So not only for the kinematics, the other thing is mass-weighted populations, like the mass-weighted age, mass-weighted metallicity, and alpha. And again, on the top row, I show the result from on the top row, I show the result from the true answer. And the second row, I show the result from PPXF. And the third row, I show the residuals. So I think in the residuals, the color looks a little bit better than before because there are some beams in green. That means they are 0. But you still see some red ones, which is in the age and the metallicity pattern. But for the alpha, you can see that I think that should be fine. So there are also some kinematics in age and metallicity as well. And I also have the 2D fraction, mass fraction distributions. First, the thing is I separate my mock observation into different components. I call them inner central, upper central, thin disk, and thick disk. It is just it is defined just by geometry. So there isn't anything like due to the alpha, the bimodality, or some other things. No, it's just some simple selection. And then I plot 2D mass fraction distributions for different components. The first column is PBXF results, and the second column is a true answer. And what you can see is that first thing is, or maybe the at least the trend is a little bit similar when you compare PBXF to the true answer for different components, maybe. But we always have an overestimation in the very metal-rich and the old population. This is not really physical, and I think this is purely due to that in this region, the spectral templates are very similar to each other. So in this sense, it will be really easy to be covered by the signal of noise or by the flux noise. So PBXL makes it really hard to tell what's the true mass fraction in this region. I think this question has been addressed by some previous studies as well. And the other thing is the star formation history. The black line is the true answer from the galaxy particles. And the red line is the PBXF result and for each component. You can see one feature I find that is very interesting is PBXF always recover like maybe a fake starburst activity between maybe 2 to 4 GeV for each component. You can see the feature is always there, which the true answer doesn't provide you. So I think from previous studies, you might see some result that shows this peak, and they say maybe it's the starburst, but I'm very suspicious on these results. But I couldn't really approve that because I don't know the true answers for their external observations. But in my test, I do see this feature. And also in PBXF, there's another parameter which is called regularization. You might know that if you work on that. With different regularization values and order of regularization, you will see very different star formation history results. So the black line, again, is the true answer. And the colorful lines are basically in different settings. So just to give you some idea that, yeah, how difficult the star formation history can be recovered. We also have, I think this is personally what I'm really interested, which is the alpha bimodality. This is also I want to see from external galaxies. Because currently for the MUSE spectral templates, we only have 2 bins in alpha, one is 0, the other is 0.4. So what I plot here is the solid line is the PBXF measurement for these 2 alpha sequences. I just plot the metallicity distribution. The dotted line is the true answer. And also I just mock this figure as the one shown by Michael Hayden, like at different radius and different height. So you can see that we do have some differences when you compare PBXF to the true answer. But more importantly, because the alpha bimodality, like if you imagine if the signal is very prominent, you should see the peak of the alpha pool and the alpha rich distribution at different positions. Maybe the blue line should be like somewhere here and red line is here, right? This is what you want to see. But at the current metallicity bin distribution in the MUSE templates, it is very hard to see because all the peaky positions is the same. I think there is a need for the future studies. If you really want to see the alpha bimodality, there's a need that we need to have more bins in metallicity to really show the differences of the peaky position. So the summary for this work is first I present a Galactic code to generate a mock data cube using stellar population models and compare that it can be compared with other real galaxies. That's a good thing for this code. And when I test the recoverability of PBXF, I found many systematic biases in kinematic recovery. And for the star formation history and the mass fraction distributions, there are also some differences. So for the future, we do need to verify the detection ability of radio migration and kinematic heating. That's the thing that I want to infer from external galaxies. And also, I also need to test if adding extinction, if all the results can be changed. But anyways, Galactic is a really good code. to not only mocking the integral field observation from from the eGalaxia code, but also you can use simulations. You can mock the observations using simulations. So I just put the code publicly available in this GitHub. It will be there when I submit the paper. And yeah, so basically, during my PhD, I just did a loop, and trying to combine the Milky Way with other galaxies to fully understand how this galaxy is formed and evolved. I just want to mention you the Gecko survey, which is proposed by Yusuf van der Sand, and it's a large VLT MUSE program that is trying to target at 35 Asian galaxies, and each galaxy will have an exposure time of more than 10 hours. So we are going very deep and have very high signal to noise. And the thing I'm personally really interested is the alpha boundary. And if we can infer the radio migration and the kinematic heating process on these external galaxies. Okay, so that's all of my talk. And very thanks for your listening. I know there are some maybe interpretations are a little bit complicated. So if you have any questions, you can ask me here or afterwards. I'm very happy to answer these questions. Thank you.
I thank you, Immortal. Are there any questions either online or in this room? Yes, Ryan?
So I had a question about, with regards to like recovering the kinematic properties being dependent on the metallicity of the stars and your instrument resolution. One of those is physics, like older stars moving on hotter orbits, and the other is just you have a really wide line spread function. Do you know which one's more impactful on your like kinematic recovery?
So, okay, I think your question can be separated into maybe two parts. One is, are you asking like why there's a differences? Why is the dependence on the velocity with age and metallicity?
Well, I'm just like I'm curious if like what's more important, like having like a really small line spread function, or just properly like accounting for older stars moving on hotter orbits? Did you look into what's the stronger dependence?
Okay, I think I can't say which one is more important, but yeah, I think it's basically 50-50. Like I said, the two reasons causing the differences in residuals, one is spectral resolution, the other is the dependence of velocity with age and metallicity. I think they are 50-50 to me. To go in detail of the velocity distribution, you can basically infer like this figure. I don't have time to expand this figure, but basically this is idea that I take all the particles in one Vernal bin. I take all the particles and then I just plot the particles velocity, line of sight velocity distribution or histogram. And I also, which is the gray line. And I also separate my particles into 3 age groups. And I just plot each velocity distribution. And what you find is that for the young groups, it has pretty narrow velocity distribution. And for the older one, the width is larger. So that's reasonable. But what you see is that for the tail of the velocity distribution, you can see it's basically dominated by the old populations. And this is the reason that because PBXF just use light-weighted kinematics to fit. So it will be biased to the young stars. And sometimes if you really have strong signals in the old, contributed by the old population, then PBXF will make some confusions on the kinematics. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
No, it's cool. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So following up from that question, you found a solution to this problem, and PBXF is a heavily used tool in this field. I'm very curious if you have if you've come up with a solution that we can apply to PBXF or could be added to PBXF to use it in a more accurate fashion moving forwards.
Yeah, thanks. That is a very good question. I do have plans to improve the PBXF code in the future. That also requires more tests on the recoverability when using my modified version of PBXF. So I have planned to do that. For the current, if you want to use PBXF at the current stage, I don't think there's anything that you can try to approve because it requires some intrinsic code modifications in PBXF, which is like you can't just use the current PBXF code to fix this issue. You need to change maybe some of the lines and some of the basic algorithm to do that. To really address the kinematic recovery issue, maybe you can try to like when you run PBXF, you just give one series of kinematics, like one value of velocity, one value of dispersion, one H3 and H4 to all the templates, right? But you can try to give a series of values. Let's say if you separate your template into 4 components and give each component a different kinematics value, maybe the result will be better. But I can't verify that because I haven't tried this test in my PBXF, but I will do that.
Yeah, I mean, let me add that I'm not at all surprised that the stellar population histories are completely wrong. That is, and should not have been a surprise to anybody trying to do that using PPXF. But
Thank you. Yeah. I also have plans to modify the star formation history code because I actually know what is the issue there, but I need time to make more tests to verify all of them, and then maybe I can submit. I can write a second paper to say, oh, I actually fixed all the issues of the PBXF. But we'll see. We'll see in the future. I can't say anything more than that.
Thanks. Sarah?
yeah, so toward the end, you had a comparison of the age and metallicity distributions. Age and metallicity, age and alpha. Yeah, this one. And you were showing that often you get these very old, very metal-rich stars that are not physical. And I was wondering if what are your thoughts on the pros and cons of like restricting the part of this that you can get back as an answer?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. Oh, sorry, did you want to say more?
Well, I realized I was just going to repeat myself. Whether it's a good idea, whether it's a bad idea, whether you're making too many assumptions.
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question. That goes to the intrinsic differences of parametric and non-parametric algorithm. So you can just say, I don't want all the mass fraction. I just want this region, all the values to be 0 in your in PBXF. It is achievable, but that means you add some prior on your fitting. Yeah, right. You have a prior, but the reason PBXF is designed is that it wants to get the correct answers through non-parametric fitting. So that means it is better to don't add prior on when you do the fitting, because for different galaxies, they can have very different signatures. So if adding prior, you don't know if you make your result more biased or more towards the correct answer, right? So there is a risk when you have some prior. And that's why people always think it's better to just add no prior, just let PBXF go freely and see what's the result you can get.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
There were no other questions for Mortal. I have a real quick one. I'm not sure if I missed this at some point, but you mentioned that the Miller spectral library didn't have the appropriate, like its sigma, the instrumental sigma was too high. And so you had used a different library. But then I noticed for your last sort of sets of results, you said you fit them using Millet's. Is there a reason that it doesn't affect those results too?
Sorry, what's your last sentence? Sorry.
That the last sets of results that you showed were using the MUSE spectral library as opposed to Pegase. I'm not
Yeah.
sure how to. Yeah, like the last few slides where you were showing your results, you were using MUSE again. Why was the?
I'm using MUSE again because MUSE is the only spectral templates that have multi-alpha bins. So if I also have the Pegas result, but there will be no alpha.
Yep, right. Okay, so you just don't have the alpha abundances then, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Are there any other questions either online? Last chance. No. Anyone here? No. Cool. In that case, can we thank the model again?